Imagine spending 20 years of your life making sure your child has everything, only for them to treat you like a stain on their expensive suit.
I'm Sarah, and for 2 decades, I worked 3 jobs to make sure my son, Jason, never felt the sting of poverty that I grew up with.
Every penny I saved went into his college fund, his clothes, and eventually his very first apartment in the city.
Jason did well. Actually, he did great. He landed a high-paying job at a top-tier financial firm and started climbing the ladder fast.
But as his paycheck grew, his memory of where he came from seemed to shrink. He stopped calling as much. One day, he actually invited me to a high-end corporate gala. I was so excited. I thought he finally wanted to share his world with me. I spent a week finding the perfect dress. It wasn't designer, but it was the nicest thing I owned. I wanted him to be proud.
The venue was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, people in outfits that cost more than my first house, and the smell of pure wealth. I saw Jason standing near the bar with a group of older men. He looked so polished. I walked over with a huge smile. When he saw me, his smile didn't reach his eyes. It was like he saw a ghost he didn't want to recognize. The man next to him, his boss, Mr. Sterling, asked who I was. I opened my mouth to speak, but Jason beat me to it.
He said, "Oh, this is Sarah. She's an old family acquaintance who helped out when I was younger." He didn't even use the word mother. I felt like I'd been slapped. I just stood there, trying to process why he would say that. Later that night, I tried to talk to him. I said, "Jason, honey, why did you tell them that? I'm your mom."
He looked around frantically to see if anyone was listening. Then he hissed at me. "Keep your voice down. You're embarrassing me."
He told me my dress looked cheap, my manners were basic, and that I didn't fit into his new life. He said, "If you can't act like you belong here, you should just leave. My boss is watching." I didn't say another word. I turned around and walked out of that ballroom, leaving the son I didn't recognize behind. On the taxi ride home, I realized something. Jason thought he had built this life all on his own. He forgot who signed the checks. You see, Jason didn't know that my father, his grandfather, had left me a massive inheritance that I had kept hidden to teach him the value of work. I had been quietly subsidizing his lifestyle for years. His luxury apartment? I owned the building through a holding company. That fancy Italian sports car he drove? It was a lease, paid for by a trust fund he thought was a performance bonus from his firm. He wanted me to stay away because I was an embarrassment? Fine. Let's see how he handles being truly independent. I called my lawyer the next morning. I told him to dissolve the trust and terminate all third-party subsidies immediately. Monday morning came around. Jason was at the office, probably still bragging about his connections to Mr. Sterling. His first clue that something was wrong was a notification on his phone. His credit card had been declined for his morning latte. He laughed it off, thinking it was just a technical glitch. Then his phone rang. It was the building manager. The manager informed him that the corporate lease for his penthouse had been terminated, and he had 48 hours to move out. When he went down to the garage to clear his head, he saw his car being loaded onto a tow truck. The lease was over. He tried to call the trust fund office, but they told him the account holder had closed the file. He finally realized who the holder was. To make matters worse, Mr. Sterling called him in. Word had gotten out that Jason's lifestyle was collapsing. In that world, image is everything. If you can't manage your own finances, how can you manage the firm's millions? Jason called me 30 times that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail every single time. That evening, he showed up at my modest little house. He wasn't wearing the designer suit anymore. He looked desperate. I opened the door and just looked at him. He started rambling about how there must be a mistake with his accounts. I told him, "There's no mistake, Jason. I just decided that if I'm such an embarrassment, I shouldn't be involved in your life at all." He started crying, saying he was sorry, that he was under pressure, that he didn't mean those things. I told him, "You didn't just insult me, Jason. You insulted every sacrifice I made to get you where you are." His bank account was empty because I was the one filling it. He had to learn what it actually feels like to earn a life. I didn't let him in. I told him he could stay at a shelter or find a cheap motel, but he wasn't living off me anymore. It took him 6 months of working at a grocery store and living in a tiny studio before he finally sent me a letter that sounded like my son again. The letter didn't ask for money. It just asked if he could come over for dinner and if he could bring the dessert he bought with his own paycheck. When he showed up this time, he hugged me like he meant it. He didn't care about the dress I was wearing.
Never forget the people who helped you climb the mountain, because they're the only ones who will catch you if you fall.
Would you have forgiven him? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this one.